Imagine being in a really severe mental health crisis.
Right.
You finally make the incredibly difficult decision to get help, and then you realize there isn't a single psychiatrist within, like, 60 miles of your home.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's just a massive wall.
It is. And if you live in one of the 64 counties in Georgia that have absolutely zero psychiatric infrastructure, that isn't some, hypothetical thought experiment. It's just Tuesday.
Exactly. And when you are already dealing with, say, debilitating depression or crippling anxiety, asking you to perform this massive logistical feat just to speak to a professional, I mean, it is essentially a systemic failure. The hurdle is simply too high.
Well, that systemic hurdle is exactly what we are tearing apart today. So welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we are pulling from an incredibly detailed informational guide provided by Coping and Healing Counseling, or CHC, and Mental Space Therapy.
It's a great source.
It really is. And our mission today is to look at how the real barrier to mental health care usually isn't a lack of desire. It's a nightmare of logistics.
Absolutely.
And we're going to explore how telehealth is completely dismantling that barrier for you. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because I think we all have this romanticized image in our heads of that, profound, tearful realization that we need therapy.
Right, like a movie scene.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the reality is scrambling for unreliable childcare.
Oh, the stress of that alone.
Yeah. It's enduring a 45-minute commute in gridlock traffic. It's fighting for a parking spot that you actually have to pay for.
And then you finally get inside.
Right. And your reward is sitting under these aggressive fluorescent lights, nervously trying to avoid eye contact with the receptionist.
While pretending to read, like, a waiting room magazine from 2019 about celebrity yacht renovations.
Exactly. It's absurd.
I mean, it really is an obstacle course, and it's designed, unintentionally of course, but it's designed to make an already vulnerable person feel completely on edge before the real work even begins.
Yeah. You arrive at the appointment entirely depleted.
Exactly.
So I want to ask you, the listener, directly, how often have you put off taking care of yourself simply because the scheduling math didn't work out?
I think everyone's been there.
Right, because you looked at your calendar and thought, well, I want to go to therapy, but I literally cannot make the physics of this week happen.
And that scheduling friction is precisely why the medical community had to pivot. But what's fascinating here is how persistent the myth of therapy light remains, despite the clinical reality of telehealth.
Therapy light. Yeah, I've heard that.
People assume it's just a glorified FaceTime call with a friend.
Well, I will admit I have felt this skepticism myself. I mean, if I'm paying for professional health care, I want the real thing, not just a casual chat.
Sure.
So how does sitting in front of my laptop equate to a complex medical treatment?
Well, because the medium changes, but the mechanics of the treatment do not.
Okay.
Telehealth therapy utilizes the exact same evidence-based approaches as an in-person visit. Take cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Which is pretty standard, right?
Very standard. It fundamentally relies on talking through and rewiring negative thought loops. The mechanism is cognitive, so it doesn't require physical proximity.
That makes sense.
Or consider EMDR, which is a therapy that uses guided eye movements to help the brain reprocess trauma.
Wait, they can do that over video?
They can. Therapists can facilitate those bilateral eye movements just as effectively by having you track a visual stimulus across your screen as they can sitting across from you in a room.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, the therapeutic relationship is built the exact same way. The only variable that actually changes is the seating arrangement.
Okay, I hear you on the clinical methods, that's clear. But a massive part of the appeal of that physical office, despite the bad lighting in the yacht magazines,
Right.
is the closed door. Like, if I am talking to a therapist over a web connection, how do I know it's actually secure?
That's a fair point.
Because we've all accidentally left our microphones on during work meeting, or had weird crosstalk on a Zoom call. I really need to know my deepest insecurities aren't just floating out in the digital ether.
And that is a very valid hesitation. It just requires understanding the technology beneath the video. The guide from CHC outlines that every session uses a HIPAA-compliant video platform.
Okay, so not just regular video chat.
Right. This is not consumer-grade software. It uses end-to-end encryption.
So break that down for me. People throw around the word encryption a lot, but what does that actually mean for my video feed?
Imagine your video and audio feed being instantly scrambled into an infinitely complex cryptographic puzzle, like the millisecond it leaves your computer.
Okay.
Even if a third party were to somehow intercept that data stream in transit, they wouldn't see or hear you. They would just get digital noise.
Ah, I see.
The only device that possesses the specific mathematical key to unscramble that puzzle is your therapist's computer on the other end.
So no one in the middle can crack it.
Exactly. The data isn't recorded, it's not stored on some random server, and it's completely inaccessible to anyone else.
Okay, so it's similar to the mechanics of online banking.
That's a great comparison.
Like, I don't worry about my password floating around when I transfer money because I trust the bank's encryption. So this is just the emotional equivalent of that security.
That is a highly accurate way to think about it. And if we look even closer at the concept of privacy, the source points out that a telehealth session from your own home is often objectively more private than sitting in a physical therapy office.
Wait, really? More private? Oh, wait, because of the waiting room effect.
Yes.
We have all had that experience where the walls in a clinic are just a little too thin.
Oh, absolutely.
You hear the muffled cadence of a conversation from the next room over.
Oh.
Or worse, you hear somebody crying.
Mm-hmm.
And you suddenly realize that the people out in the waiting area are absolutely going to hear you when it's your turn.
Right. And then you end up spending half the session policing your own volume instead of actually processing your emotions.
Yeah, you're whispering your trauma.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you are in a private space of your own choosing, that environmental anxiety completely evaporates.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because if the privacy is that secure and the clinical methods are identical, we aren't just talking about making therapy slightly more convenient.
No, we're not.
We are talking about completely redefining who actually makes it to the couch in the first place.
It alters the entire demographic of mental health care. I mean, the traditional model heavily favored people with flexible jobs, reliable transportation, and just, surplus time.
Which is a luxury.
Huge luxury. Telehealth bypasses those tangible lifestyle hurdles.
Let's start with what the source calls nervous first-timers.
Okay.
Physically walking into a building that says counseling center on the door is a very public physical declaration of vulnerability. You are crossing a literal threshold.
It's intimidating.
But doing it from your own bedroom or doing a session parked in your car on your lunch break.
I love that example.
Yeah, it gives you what sports teams call a home field advantage. You perform better because you control the environment, the temperature, the seating. You aren't stepping into their clinical world. You are inviting them into yours.
And that shift in power dynamics is crucial. For a lot of people, the physical act of going to a clinic forces them to confront their vulnerability in a public way before they have even met the therapist.
Right.
But when we look at specific demographic hurdles, the mechanics of telehealth solve problems that used to be absolute deal breakers.
Like what?
Well, take working professionals. A 50-minute session takes exactly 50 minutes.
Oh, right. You don't have to awkwardly ask your boss for a half day off for, quote, a medical appointment. Right. Every single Tuesday.
Exactly. You simply close your spreadsheets, click a secure link, have your session, and go straight back to your day.
That's amazing.
Then consider parents. The source specifically highlights how finding reliable childcare just to go talk about how stressed you are about parenting is, well, it's a cruel irony.
It totally is. You're paying a babysitter $20 an hour so you can go pay a therapist $100 an hour to complain about being broke and tired.
Yes. And it is one of the primary reasons parents, particularly the mothers, postpone their own care.
I can see that.
Telehealth removes the babysitter from the equation entirely. A session can happen during a toddler's nap time.
Oh, that's smart.
The parent is physically just one room away, completely accessible if a genuine emergency happens, but they are still fully engaged in their own dedicated care.
I want to pause here and just validate your busy life for a second, speaking directly to you listening.
Yeah.
Finding 50 uninterrupted minutes in your week is hard enough. At a two-way commute in rush hour, the unpredictable nature of finding parking.
It's exhausting.
You're asking someone who's already totally depleted to spend energy they simply do not have.
And that depletion is even more pronounced for people with mobility challenges or chronic illnesses.
Right, of course.
The physical toll of getting dressed, navigating public transportation, and getting into an office building can be agonizing or sometimes physically impossible.
Yeah?
Telehealth takes that physical strain, which absolutely shouldn't be a prerequisite for mental health care, and entirely removes it.
Okay, I hear you on the convenience. I see how this solves the logistical nightmare, but I'm still stuck on the clinical side for a second.
Okay, what's your concern?
Well, half of human communication is what I'm doing with my hands or how I'm anxiously bouncing my leg. A webcam cuts me off at the shoulders. Doesn't the therapist lose half the data?
I see what you mean.
Can they really read my body language and nonverbal cues through a two-dimensional screen.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at how therapists actually decode human emotion. Yes, seeing a bouncing leg is helpful, but therapists are rigorously trained to focus heavily on the face and the voice.
Oh, okay.
They are watching for micro expressions, the tiny fleeting muscle movements around the eyes and mouth that betray an emotion before you even speak it.
Like a flinch, almost.
Exactly, like a slight tightening of the jaw when you mention a specific family member.
And a good webcam captures that data just fine.
Often better than sitting 10 feet away across a dimly lit room, to be honest.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Furthermore, they are analyzing vocal prosody.
Prosody.
Yeah, the rhythm, pitch, and tone of your voice, along with your breathing patterns. Those auditory cues translate perfectly over a digital connection.
Huh.
And the source adds a fascinating counterpoint to that two-dimensional limitation. Many therapists report that clients are significantly more open precisely because they are in their own space.
That home field advantage again.
Exactly. When your defensive walls are lowered by that comfort, you actually volunteer more emotional data than a therapist would glean from a tapping foot anyway.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense mechanically. But what does the hard data actually say? Like, are the medical outcomes the same?
The clinical data is incredibly robust. The text cites research published in major peer-reviewed journals, including the Journal of Affective Disorders and the Journal of Anxiety Disorders.
Serious publications.
Very serious. And they have measured outcomes for depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and found that telehealth therapy produces results that are completely equivalent to in-person therapy.
Really? Completely equivalent?
Yes, it is not a secondary, lesser form of care.
But here's the part of the data that I think is the real aha moment for me.
What's that?
It's not just about whether the therapy works when you're there. It's about a completely different metric, which is the drop in no-show rates.
Oh, yes. This is perhaps the most vital metric of all. Client satisfaction rates exceed 90%, and consequently, no-show rates just plummet.
Because consistent attendance is the single biggest predictor of therapy actually working.
Yeah.
If you don't go, it can't help you.
Simple as that.
When you wake up feeling terrible, the thought of driving 40 minutes in the rain is enough to make you cancel. The friction wins.
Yeah.
But the thought of just opening your laptop, that's manageable. By removing the friction, telehealth directly increases the actual real-world success rate of the treatment.
You remove the excuses the anxious brain creates to avoid hard work. However, we should probably address the totally different kind of anxiety that replaces the commute.
Which is?
Technology anxiety.
Oh, yes. What happens when the Wi-Fi drops? Or when you hear telehealth and immediately panic, thinking you need to download complex, clunky software or buy a ring light and a fancy microphone?
Right. Well, the mechanical requirements are incredibly minimal. The rule of thumb from the guide is really reassuring. It says if you can stream a YouTube video without it buffering endlessly, your connection is strong enough.
Oh, that's a pretty low bar.
It is. You don't need special software. A smartphone, a tablet, or a basic computer with a built-in camera and microphone is literally all you need. You click a secure link, and you are in.
And if real life happens, like if the dog starts barking at the mailman, or the internet suddenly drops because your neighbor is downloading a massive file.
Therapists handle it. I mean, they are entirely accustomed to the reality of people's lives. A pet walking across the keyboard is just part of the human experience now.
Right.
And if the internet drops, it's just a minor tech hiccup. They understand the mechanism of the platform. They will simply call you back or switch to a standard phone call to finish the session. It is never a crisis.
So what does this all mean? When you take this highly effective clinical model, you combine it with this frictionless delivery system, you aren't just solving your personal scheduling conflict.
No, it's much bigger.
You are solving a massive structural health crisis. And the source uses the state of Georgia as the perfect case study for this macro-level impact.
And this raises an important question. How do you actually treat people who live in mental health care deserts?
Right.
We mentioned it at the beginning, but we really need to unpack why these deserts exist. Medical professionals, including specialists like psychiatrists and psychologists, tend to cluster around urban centers where hospitals and universities are located.
Like Atlanta.
Exactly. It's a localized brain drain. They graduate from urban medical schools and stay there to build their practices, unintentionally abandoning rural areas.
Leaving massive geographical gaps. I mean, the statistics for Georgia outlined in the guide are just staggering. Out of 159 counties in the entire state, 151 of them lack adequate mental health providers.
And let's drill down even further into those numbers. 64 counties have 0 psychiatrists.
Wow.
29 counties have 0 psychologists.
So if you have a severe panic attack or a depressive episode in one of those 29 counties, there is no local physical door you can walk through to get specialized help. You are entirely cut off by geography.
Exactly. Accessing care for those rural residents often means committing to a 60-mile drive each way just for one single 50-minute appointment.
Which is basically impossible if you are barely functioning. If depression is pinning you to your bed, you are not organizing a 120-mile round trip.
No, you're not.
It simply isn't going to happen. You will go untreated.
And this is the ultimate triumph of the telehealth model. It completely disconnects your access to healthcare from your zip code. Geography is no longer destiny.
I love that phrasing.
The system fundamentally changes when the provider can beam directly into the county that has 0 infrastructure.
So a resident living in a highly rural area, like Telfair County, can open their laptop and receive the exact same quality of care from the exact same highly trained specialist as someone living in a luxury high-rise in Midtown Atlanta.
That is the exact mechanism of the solution. The guide notes that Coping and Healing Counseling, CHC, has a team of over 15 licensed therapists.
Okay.
And through this secure telehealth model, they are actively serving every single corner of all 159 counties in Georgia. The physical distance between the therapist and the patient has been rendered mathematically irrelevant.
It democratizes access without having to wait decades for rural healthcare infrastructure to catch up.
Exactly.
Well, as we bring this deep dive full circle, I think the most crucial takeaway here is reframing how we view the struggle of getting help. We need to remind you, the listener, that for so long, the hardest part of therapy was never actually the therapy itself.
That's such an important point.
The hard part wasn't sitting down and talking through your trauma or your anxiety. The hard part was the commuting, the scheduling, the childcare, the time off work.
Right.
Telehealth simply handles the logistics so that you can finally focus your energy on the only part that actually matters, which is yourself.
It allows the therapeutic process to be the central focus rather than an afterthought to a stressful commute.
Absolutely. And if you're listening to this and realizing that the math finally works in your favor, the source material provided specific contact information to help you take that step.
Oh, great.
You can visit chgtherapy.com to request a telehealth appointment. And remember, their team serves all 159 Georgia counties.
Which is incredible.
They also verify your insurance before your first session to eliminate any financial surprises. They accept most plans, and importantly, this includes Georgia Medicaid at 0 cost.
That's a huge barrier removed right there.
It really is. If you prefer to reach out directly, their phone number is 404-832-0102. That's 404-832-0102. Or you can simply email them at support@chctherapy.com.
The goal of their entire system is just to make that first step as seamless as possible.
Which leaves me with this final thought for you to chew on. We've spent this entire time talking about how geography, commuting, childcare, and logistics used to be the towering gatekeepers to our mental health.
Right.
But if telehealth completely removes all of those barriers, what happens when the only barrier left standing between you and getting the help you deserve is simply making the choice to click a link?
Wow.
It strips away all of our best, most rational-sounding excuses, and suddenly we are left standing face-to-face with our own readiness to change. There's no traffic to blame anymore.
Yep.
There's just you, your screen, and the opportunity to finally put down that 2019 Yacht magazine, turn off the fluorescent lights, and just start healing from the comfort of your own couch.